Hello, this is Lori with a low-stakes spoiler warning for you. As you know, our show is never spoiler-free, but this episode also includes a spoiler for the sequel to Cyteen, Regenesis. That's going to be around minute 45 or 46, so just fast forward through that if you have any concerns. Bye!
Welcome to Hugo Girl. This is your March episode. This month we read all 680 pages of CJ Cherryh's Cyteen, published in 1988 and winning the Hugo Award for Best Novel in 1989. It also won the Locus Award that year. CJ is an incredible force in the sci-fi world and has written more than 80 books since the 1970s.
That's so many.
I want to start off with...
How many of them are in this book?
So many. Fun fact, so CJ Cherryh, lots of female authors in the past, use their initials instead of, Mary Jane or whatever to, kind of trick boys into reading their books. But she got an edit from an editor that said that she should add an H to her last name to make it look less like a romance writer's name. So Cherry is like her with the H, Cherryh, looks like a Star Wars name.
It does.
It does.
Her brother's also an author, and I think there was some interest in differentiating them by changing her last name as well.
Cool. So
something like that.
Lori, do we have some housekeeping?
I have a corrections corner.
Go for it, Amy.
So my lovely, sweet, wonderful medieval scholar friend, Emily, listened to our Doomsday episode and texted me out of the blue and simply said, "Oh my god, a rood is the cross, and a rood screen is a screen that shields the rood from sight because it's too holy for the plebes to look upon!" Exclamation
Didn't
points.
we say that though?
Lori did. Okay. I fought with her.
I just thought it was a tree.
And I think we just got to her last nerve. And so she texted me to correct us.
I like that we can be corrected from science friends.
I know.
So
we got corrected by medieval friend Emily. Thank you. The rood is the cross, the rood screen. Screens the rood from view because we are not holy enough to look upon it.
Rude of us to not.
We also had a slight correction moment because we read a piece online talking about romance novels and Dragonflight, so the corrections corner is limited right now to, we need to brush up on our bodice ripper knowledge before we go into Dragonflight next time.
Yeah, she made a good point. The reason we found it is Kevin saw a link from medium.com, and then we found the post, and she was saying that she was actually kind of happy that we were clearly not familiar with the bodice ripper genre. She was like, it's good that this is falling out of fashion. But it was a good point that was a format that Anne McCaffrey was following, or like a subgenre of romance that she was writing in, and that definitely missed me. I'm aware of bodice rippers, but I have apparently only read the one.
I would never have thought about it in this context. So it was great. It was a good little. It's good. Those are two good corrections corners, I think.
Yeah, and it was Jennifer Povey. She has a blog that seems like a well-read, well-followed blog where she posts stuff about the genre.
And further proof that there's no statute of limitations on corrections corners.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you have a corrections corner from our very first episode, Ender's Game? Please email us at hugogirlpodcast@gmail.com.
I was thinking, I haven't listened to our first 5 episodes in a long time, maybe ever. But back before we had a real format.
That's right.
Yeah.
And good sound.
I think we had this around Dune time is when Doomsday.
Cool. Alrighty, well, are y'all ready to pop into this plot summary?
Sure am.
Let's do it.
All right, this is a very hard...
Oh, wait, what's your name?
Oh, I'm Haley.
I'm Lori.
I'm Amy. That's all.
Actually, today I'm Haley too, so...
Haley Senior.
Haley PR.
Somebody, actually, I forget the guy who was the Seth friend.
Oh, Keith Law.
Keith Law, I think it's him. It might have been... I've read 6 million reviews of this book, but they referred to Air as Airy de. Alrighty. Yeah, so I tried to keep this brief because, well, I was trying to, Reddit has, explain it to a 5-year-old, and this book has a lot of world building and planet building and society building, but I'm going to do my best, so. Ariane Emery is the genius leader of a cloning company called Rezoon. She is murdered. Fortunately, she left behind detailed instructions for Rezoon to clone her, resulting in Airy 2. They recreate her original upbringing so as to make her into the same type of person with the same struggles, backgrounds, and trauma. The book centers around the political intrigue of this universe, which consists of Union, a group of post-Earth colonies, and the Alliance, which I think is traitors?
The Alliance is the Earth-centered part of the government.
So I thought there were 3. I thought there was Alliance, Earth, and Union.
But I think importantly, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, true.
Union and Alliance are at odds. I think that's all you really need.
Yeah, well, I said, and then there's Old Earth that gives an Expanse type vibe. There's like different cabals.
Yes.
There are other characters who play a critical role in this book, including Florian's and Catelyn's 1 and 2, her Aussie companions / slaves. Also,
I don't know why it's funny.
It is. Also embroiled in the plot is Jordan Warwick, a frenemy who has been accused of killing her, and Justin, who is Jordan's parental replicate clone son, and his lover brother, Ozzy Grant.
Lover, brother, slave.
Lover, brother, slave.
Lover, brother, slave, Ozzy Grant. There are horses, orange juice, and... All right.
I hope it's horses, orange juice, and coffee. Is it horses, orange juice, and coffee?
There are horses, orange juice, and political machinations all throughout. It touches on truly epic themes like identity, free will, nature versus nurture, and more. The book ends with no resolution to who killed her, and a slightly different Aerie who is less evil.
I like it. And more.
Yeah. And more. I am so angry that we don't get a resolution to the murder mystery.
I am so angry.
And I Googled who killed...
No.
Oh, can I want to say that
theories.
I Googled it?
You can say you Googled
it. Do they answer it in Regenesis, the sequel?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, but apparently it's not an exciting answer. But it felt very much like who killed Jenny Schechter for the L Word fans in the audience. Like the internet is like, but who was it?
I don't read as closely as you guys, apparently, because the entire book, I was like, oh, Jordan did it. He confessed. Which I know was like a plot, or like he
was a coerced confession.
It was a coerced confession.
The book worked just fine for me thinking that, so.
It doesn't. And in the end, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. As with many things that we read for many pages, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Lots of things do matter, and I found myself truly touched about a couple of things, but. Yeah. So usually when we have books that are not 680 pages, I usually read them twice. Like I read them through, and then I like make some notes, and then go back and like try and capture small details, but there was just no time.
Oh, yeah.
No, we were all down to the wire.
I do think I want to read this book again. I know that's going to be...
I thought about it, too.
That's going to be maybe unpopular. I don't know. But, like, after I read it, and we can get into this in general discussion after, but she's good at breadcrumbs. And I want to go back and
I can
see if I can pick some of them up. Anyway.
This book is filled with breadcrumbs, then.
It is, though. So, okay.
I mean, I wasn't being facetious. There's so much. There's things that I forgot. Like y'all knew about the orange juice thing. I'm sure I read that.
I didn't know about the orange juice thing. That blew my mind. Actually,
it made sense, but I just forgot.
The orange juice thing is Ari. It's hard to get orange juice where they are, and Ari is rich and shows off by serving real orange juice.
So throughout the book, they drink 1 million orange juice and vodkas. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. They like orange juice.
but it turns out it's a flex. Yeah.
But maybe you could just do that twice, and it
right.
All right, 4 goodies from Goodreads. I want to go first because this is my favorite goodie of all time. and I scoured, and there's lots of great reviews. Good, bad, everything in between. Love it, hate it. But Aaron on Goodreads gave it 2 stars on June 5th, 2020.
That's mine too. We have the same one.
No! He said, never has a book taken so long to do so little with so much.
It's a perfect review. It's a perfect review.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Never has a book taken so long to do so little with so much.
There is so much. Like, there's 86 other books you could write with the thoughts.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a lot going on in this book. I did have a second one just in case, so that's fine. Yeah. We had the same one. Justin Alexander from thealexandrian.net, in an otherwise positive review of the book, he really likes the book, but one of his lines was, "For me, the experience was like dog paddling wildly in a typhoon."
Yeah.
She lays so much on you in the first 100 pages that it's absolutely overwhelming and disorienting.
I was very worried that the whole book was going to be like that.
Well, and she buried important exposition 400 pages into the book that would have given us a lot of orientation as to where we were in time and space. Yeah. It's like, why did you wait so long to tell us this?
I've got 2. The first one is, as Haley mentioned, Keith Law. He's a sports writer for The Athletic and occasional guest on Hugo's There. My favorite episode aired in October of last year and on Hugo's There, and Seth described it as Keith Law hates all your favorite Hugo winners. But he's very good at hating on books.
He's so thoughtful.
Yeah. His post is really thoughtful. We'll link it in the show notes. But I plucked out a quote because Kevin actually found this review first and was laughing very hard at this line. "The prose is leaden enough that you could use it at the dentist office to protect your chest during x-rays." And then the Goodreads review I have is from Yasin, and it was a technically a 2-star review since Goodreads doesn't let you do halves. And Yasin said, for the first 100 pages, I had no idea what's going on and who's who, just random names on the page. In the middle, it got a bit interesting. That's why I give it 1.5 instead of a sharp 1. Ended on an uninteresting note as well.
I also thought it gained a little speed.
Oh, 100%.
In the end. I thought
the end was great.
Before it petered out, but she... So, can we talk about the end for a second? Sure. I know that's
Should we start at the end?
Should we start at the end?
We don't do spoiler-free reviews here. So.
Let's do best things first, and the end is the best part.
I mean, so at the end, a lot of the intrigue and stuff sort of reaches a head, and there's a... They're flying back to Rezun because they've been attacked with a bomb when they were in Novgorod, which is a city close to Rezun, and they're on their way back, and they're going to get down to the business with kicking Denise out of the family or whatever the heck the plan is, and they get there, and Florian and Catelyn are going to storm the administration. I mean, all this stuff is happening, and then it's over in a paragraph, and then the book is over, and it's
just kind of stops.
It's none of the action. We spent the entire book learning how good Florian and Catelyn are at being secret agent superheroes, and the minute we're about to watch them be secret agent superheroes, it just gets glossed over and nothing happens. I was so mad about that. I was so mad about it.
Catelyn threw a grenade.
She sure did. She threw a grenade.
It was a nice touch that she held the live grenade until right before it went off so that the other security person couldn't lob it back at her. That was a nice touch.
That was pretty nice. And it was also interesting. But it was interesting, Aban, who is, the bodyguard right-hand man to Gerard, which is one of the uncles, went rogue, and that's interesting in a lot of ways because of how Ozzy worked, and all this stuff was going on, and then...
I don't think he went rogue. I think he was acting on orders.
So I think he went rogue, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Well, we can get to that.
I didn't get any of this from the last 50 pages.
I know.
I was like, who's Eben? I don't know.
It goes by so fast.
The last 50 pages remind me of the last 50 pages of Dune. Because you remember how Dune, they're walking, they're walking, they're walking, and then the last 50 pages is this wild, disorienting battle. It's very similar.
It's also the same way that Harry Potters are paced.
Yeah. I mean,
that's true.
Or it's like how John Mulaney writes Happy Birthday. It's the big H. And then the Y is tiny.
And then the Y doesn't fit. You have to write it.
I mean, I tried. I knew there were some attacks, but I couldn't tell you who did them, what their motivations were, why it was happening.
Don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
She clearly had a vision of what was going on. She just, I feel was unable to tell us. For some reason, she was unable to tell us.
Yeah, I mean, even in the first 50 pages, if they had just said, oh, he's a centrist, here's what that means.
So I think we were at a little bit of a disadvantage because we didn't read Down Below Station first. So apparently Down Below Station sets you up for what's happening in Cyteen, and we would have been much more well-oriented, apparently, if we read
there are a lot of books in this universe, I think.
There are, yeah. And there's a sequel now, Regenesis.
But I've read a lot of books in series, and they still, they'll give you 3 sentences.
I don't know if it's possible in this book, honestly.
I think so.
But the other thing is, a lot of the universe is just not really relevant to what's going on here, but I bet that it works better within the larger context of all of these novels. I bet if you were more familiar with the universe, then you read this and you eat it up because you're getting, like you said, breadcrumbs. And some of the positive reviews I read complimented how she weaves together all of these threads from all these different books. So I think I agree with you that we were at somewhat of a disadvantage reading this standalone, but it is fair to read it as a standalone because it's not number 2 in a series.
It's still, I think, a little bit of a problem in the book that it's hard to orient yourself.
She could have taken, 2 paragraphs less of a textbook cloning chapter. just 2 paragraphs and move them to the front of the first page.
When I say this lady needs an editor. You guys.
So
we watch RE2 grow up in real time, and we get every single thought that goes through everybody's head. Every thought, single thought,
but not not interesting or beautiful or weird thoughts.
It's not beautiful prose.
Everything is just a tense dialogue.
Yeah.
So.
Which I think is supposed to say something about how they're growing up in Rezun. It is a very tense place to grow up, and it's constant surveillance, and it's constant intrigue and machinations, and that's how these people that's how they end up operating because that's how they were raised. So I think it's supposed to be that way, I guess.
It is surprising to me that something so filled with intrigue is not more intriguing to read.
Yeah, everything seems very high stakes and low stakes at the same time. Mm-hmm. So when
I read the back of it and it described itself as part murder mystery, part space opera, I was like, yes, because I love a murder mystery. And then I was like, well, we don't really even know that she was murdered. Like, well, I know, Amy, you want to have like a discussion about theories, so I won't jump into that yet. But I do want to say I have I have several special segments that I'd like to propose, and one of them is grammar gripes.
Grammar. Okay.
So maybe we can talk about some of the writing there.
Just the excessive use of the M-dash.
M-dash mess. And ways that don't make sense. Like, I love an M-dash.
Me too.
But, like, not in between, hi there.
I have to go back almost every email I write at work and delete at least 2 M-dashes.
Yeah, but, like, they serve a point. They're just not using, and you can use, with fiction, grammar is, fast and loose. You can do whatever you want. But I was confused by because I would always pause and be like, okay, how would you say this? Hi, there. It's easy to be confused about a lot of the plot structure and the writing style. But I think some of the big themes we could hit, like, I like thinking about Ozzy is really cool. I mean, so it stands for artificial zygote insemination, and basically,
oh, how do you know that?
I found it from Googling.
Oh my God,
I didn't know that either.
Curious.
Yeah. She must explain that in some other book because
Ozzy
not in this
definitely
book.
not in this book. In other books.
Ozzy are a whole thing. I mean, that's part of the schism between the Alliance and the Union,
right?
Is the existence of
Ozzy.
And
so they came about because when you're colonizing planets, you need more people, and this was a quick way to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's tantamount to slavery. So,
well, humans have a long history of breeding slaves to meet the needs that the people in power can't meet themselves.
And it's very Brave New Worldian that there are classes of Ozzy. So there's like the alphas that are super smart, and then I'm assuming it goes down to gammas and deltas, and they're like the ditch diggers, I guess.
And they engineer people to be like, you just do this one thing and don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, well, and
poor Nelly.
Yeah, and Brave New World, they're like, if you're less smart, you don't hate ditch digging. And I'm like, that's brilliant, but horrible and not human. So
I was playing with that in my mind as I was reading these things. Like, is it worse or better if the person is not uncomfortable with their situation? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I think that this book explores these ideas that are really interesting. And while I will always object to the writing, and by that I mean the literal sentences, I think there are some interesting ideas that I will think about for a long time, and that's one of them. And I mean, ultimately, I fall on the side of this is absolutely not okay. And it makes me think of, this book made me think of a lot of things, but I kept thinking about how, and I don't want to like bring up Harry Potter because puke, but like
I already brought up Harry
Potter.
Yeah.
Well, it made me think of house elves and how the wizards were like, they like working for no pay.
No, they don't.
And this is kind of like that.
But these Ozzy might actually like working for no pay because of all the positive feedback they get.
They've been engineered to do that.
I know.
And obviously that's not okay.
Right.
Like no Ozzy has a meaningful choice about anything.
No, and they are still people, and they're human people. They're people.
And they also made me think of Rat Korga from Stars in My Pocket because he had that radical anxiety termination. But unfortunately, he would still feel all of those anxieties. He just wasn't able to react to them. And it's similar here where you see even Grant, who's obviously a genius, can't really have a big reaction to things. And in a moment of crisis always has to look to Justin to tell him what to do, even though he's absolutely intellectually capable of making decisions. He can't because he's programmed not to.
Yeah. So you have Ozzy, which can like serve society and be companion slaves, whatever. And then you have parental replicate clones, which I was reading a review of this, and they talked about how there's no marriage in this book, at least that we see, which is interesting. They're just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it for myself. And then I was thinking, and I have a question for science friends. So I know that sexual reproduction is good because it introduces more differences into gene sets, but why couldn't we all just start cloning ourselves?
Well, that will come up in Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang.
Ooh, yeah.
This is actually a really interesting progression between this book and that.
Is it like multiplicity because the clones just get dumber?
Kind of.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, then we don't need a science friend.
Dumber is like not exactly right, but they definitely get different and like less adaptable.
Yeah, I can see that.
The thing I wondered about this too is that by taking Rejuve, they make themselves, I think, either sterile or less fertile. And I wondered, like, why aren't they promoting just like ordinary reproduction? Or why are they so focused on cloning? You know, they could do non-cloning I don't know what the word is, but like in Barayar where they have the artificial wombs, but it's like this person and this person instead of a clone. And then they would have, more genetic diversity.
I think it has something to do with the way that they are, and this is total speculation, but I think it has something to do with the way these planets are being colonized. Like, there's not a lot of people, right? So they're creating Ozzy to create people. And then they're taking rejuve, so they can't reproduce normally. So they've sort of gotten into the habit of just recreating themselves.
Yeah.
And it's become a little bit of a control power thing too. Like, I'll just keep recreating myself and then I can have power forever. And
we're also only on Rezoon, which is like the cloning capital of the universe.
And
It's true. It's just what they do.
And I think that's part of one of the books. It's like, okay, well, and it's like seeing where we've gotten to this point. So we've gotten to this point where people can have parental replicates. Well, the next evolution of that is, no, I'm just going to recreate myself. I'm going to create a person who can be raised in the same environment and just literally recreate myself instead of taking any chances, anything like that. I can just... And that's what they talk about a lot with, like, they make references to the Bach clone where they already tried this once and it didn't work. And then they have Ari who's being recreated and they have this Ruben who's being recreated. And I think that's where the book is, like, taking place at that moment where it's like, what's the next progression in this?
It's something about all that struck me as very primitive, too. The idea that, like, our society can't survive if we don't have Ari Emery all the time.
She's the smartest girl
like,
ever.
we've got a dozen geniuses and we have to just have them forever.
Yeah, and also I
The
thought
special concept.
yeah,
Is
it's such a stupid word to like. Oh, he's special. Like, and also, what's the test? Like, it's like 12 people or something? It's like, no, there could be more specials.
Because and Ari is always saying that Justin would be a special, but then they wouldn't have as much like government control over him, so they won't designate him as a special, even though he clearly should be.
And Gerard is a special, but really it should be Denise.
Oh, is Gerard a special?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
He gets that status, I think, after Ari dies, so that nobody can touch him, and then do whatever he wants.
It sounds like a bad idea to give these people like a complete diplomatic immunity.
So I didn't buy the idea that as a special there would be a system in which a special couldn't consent to being like interrogated. So they have this way of kind of chemically interrogating people, like truth serum, basically. So after Ari is murdered. And Jordan is the number one suspect. Let's not talk about, but the names are hard to keep track of.
Justin seems like the older name, and Jordan seems like the little boy's name. But it's
I just can't. They're clones of each other. They both have J names. I struggled. Anyway, so Jordan is the number one suspect because they're frenemies, and Ari had done something horrible to Justin, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and they couldn't examine him or question him because it's just not allowed. It's called a psych probe, and they're not allowed to do it to specials, and specials aren't even allowed to consent to it. And so he just was like, okay, and he went to prison.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's weird to me that like the most privileged people in society, they have this system where you would just have to go to prison.
Well, the reason is because they can be interfered with, right? If they're psych probed, so like they want to keep their brains pristine and protected.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to get in there and meddle.
Yeah, I know that's like the reason, but I just sort of didn't. I mean, now he's like effectively removed from society, right? So he's still not super useful. I think he's working on some stuff, but like as much as we hear about what's going on in politics and science and stuff, we don't really know what is Jordan doing in his little prison. Yeah, he's just gone.
It's wacky.
So he's still not super contributing to things in his current
He's there
state.
if they need him. But like the delay talking to just the other side of the planet seems strange. Like they don't have like stationary orbit satellites, I guess. Yeah. So they can't
There's no like
talk.
WhatsApp.
You're right.
Yeah. There's no internet.
Another temporary segment I wanted to do is Tech Talk.
Oh yeah, the Alexa they have.
They have faxes. They're sending I send faxes because the law is behind, and faxes are more secure than email. But I thought have faxes.
Well, so the idea of tape, which is like the psychological conditioning, that's because when she started writing this series, it was the 70s, and tape was, the predominant way of listening to music. But I was like, today would it be called like doing MP3s or like stream sleep or cast conditioning podcast? I don't know. Like tape is such an antiquated term that it's weird.
Take some tape.
Take some tape.
Take tape. Everyone's always taking tape.
Whenever I hear, Data has backup tapes still to this day, often. And whenever I hear that, I think of like...
What's Data?
Data? Like digital data?
I don't think she means like Mr. Data. You don't mean like Commander Data.
No, like data. Like our email data. and stuff like that can still use backup tapes. Like some systems still use backup tapes.
Really?
And so whenever I hear that, I think it sounds very like I imagine a bunch of cassette tapes somewhere. Yeah. That's not what it looks like, but
it's not?
No.
What does it look like?
It's probably bigger spools of tape.
Oh, okay.
But
I thought it was all in the cloud or like digital. So yeah.
No, some places have hard
backups of
physical
some
backups
stuff.
of things. Yeah. Some things do still do that. I really hope that's true. I'm sure we'll hear about it if it's not.
Yeah.
Science friends, tape friends.
Tape friends.
Data
Tell
friends.
me if I'm way off base.
Track friends.
I have a question for you guys. Who would play grown-up Ari?
I was thinking about this.
I have an answer.
I like Zendaya as baby Ari, but I can't think of an adult Ari that would look right.
I went back and forth between like a blonde person and a brunette person, so it was hard.
I didn't even think about appearance. I thought about demeanor, and I've got Cate Blanchett.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I thought about Tilda just because I love Tilda.
Oh, Tilda.
But I think it's more of like a short, dark-haired woman who's kind of like gruff.
I just thought it would be someone whose like default setting is imposing, and I just saw Tar recently, so I was oh, Cate Blanchett, an imposing psycho.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Kate in a brown wig.
I couldn't. So I would say the character that I cared the least about was Justin because I couldn't tell you anything about him.
I know his whole situation is so bleak.
Like some of the character, like obviously he goes through trauma, but like so there's a interview I think with I forget what it was, but it's a YouTube video where it's talking about how the original Star Wars movies, like if I asked you to describe Han Solo, you'd be like plucky and charming and debonair. But if they asked, and it was meant to showcase the difference between that and the prequel characters. And it's like if I asked you to describe Qui-Gon, you'd be like a beard. And it's just I felt the same way. I was like I couldn't tell you one thing about Justin or what he likes.
Like the only thing I know about Justin is that he loves Grant and he's worried all the time.
Yeah, like
That's it.
And I liked when he would go into his boss, who was like J. Jonah Jameson, and be like, "You fucked up, blah blah blah."
Yanni,
but I couldn't tell you what his job was. I thought for a while he was an architect because he kept talking about design, and then I realized it was tape design. But we don't get any like he's not working on a cool project with like anxiety.
So he's working on a way. Okay, I tried to piece this together because I was also very curious. I'm not sure I got it right, but he's looking for a way to give CIT people the same kind of positive feedback on what they do that Ozzy get for what they do.
It's getting a little treat after you do a thing.
Kind of. Like, he's trying to figure out a way to make people more positive about the things they do or something like that.
Because they just live in a gray box.
But it doesn't work the same with CIT people as it does with Ozzy because Ozzy are conditioned to take tape like that from birth.
From birth, yeah.
And CIT people aren't. Yeah. So I think that's what he's working on. And it matters to what Ari Sr. was doing, because Ari Sr. was working on ways to basically create societies by putting worms in Ozzy tape, right? So Ozzies would pass on certain things to their children, even if they weren't tape there to...
It's like genetic engineering, yeah.
Yeah, like she was creating cultural traditions, basically, that would get passed on even if there wasn't tape. In like a world they're trying to inhabit or trying to take over.
Good for him.
And so something about what Justin was doing dovetailed with that, which is why they quote unquote needed each other. Like Ari Jr. was like really fascinated by what Justin was working on because it had something to do with what Ari Sr. was working on. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, he's this genius tape designer who's figuring out a way to like, I don't know, psych out CITs.
Yeah,
using tape somehow.
There's a lot of paragraphs about it. I don't know.
Tried so hard, and I'm not sure I got it. But
my question is, why don't they give everyone tape to make them not sexually abused children?
Why were they okay with her doing that? Okay, let's talk about that.
Hold on. Okay. So towards the end of the book, they imply that she did it for a reason, but I couldn't figure it out.
So she was running interference on Justin. Like she was while she had him deep under and was sexually abusing him, she was also laying the groundwork to create a weird codependency between him and Ari. So that when
Ari too?
Okay. So that when there was when her clone came around. Well, I think she meant for it to be with her.
Why did she have
She wanted to have him really dependent on her. I think as sort of a way to get at Jordan and also a way to work on the stuff I was just talking about, her plans.
Why did it have to be sexual assault, though?
No kidding.
I don't know.
There's only like a dozen people living there. She could have just been nice to him.
Or knocked him on the head and be like, here's some tape.
I think there might be something to do with psychological vulnerability. but also it seemed like it was just her predilection. So I don't know. It's very, but she was in love with Jordan at one point, and so she tried to get with Jordan. Jordan rejected her.
He looks like her,
and he looks like Jordan, and I think it had something to do with that.
Yeah,
and so. But yeah, that's what her whole thing was. Like, she was trying to run interference on him to get him to be basically dependent on her.
And so the only way she could think of to do that, even though they have psychological conditioning, was
to rape him
and to gang rape him with her Aussie slaves, which is also a way to rape her Aussie slaves by forcing them to do that.
It was so disturbing.
It was really disturbing.
It was one of the first things you read in this book, and you're like, what?
And CJ Cherryh is a woman too, which I wouldn't expect. But
I felt like this scene, at least, I was thinking about it versus Wind Up Girl, which are the two most horrific scenes of sexual assault that I think we've read. And this one, I appreciated that we have so much of Justin's perspective. Like, we're not watching this. We're not like an observer of
it's not
what's
graphic,
happening.
Thank God.
It's not graphic, and nothing about it felt prurient to me in the way that Wind Up Girl did. And we saw it from the victim's perspective, and we saw the long range effects of it on him. So I think it was treated responsibly. I mean, obviously I never enjoy reading a scene like that, but I think it was treated responsibly by the author. And I appreciated how, like, we saw how awful it was for him, and then we saw how people treated him. Like, that was why at a point, you know, you think Dennis is kind of like the kindlier person, and then there was a point where he was talking to Justin, and he was like, Ari was my friend, and I won't have her legacy destroyed because of some seedy incident or something. The way he described it was just like, oh, the seedy thing that happened. But he's separately been like, oh, son, you've been through something so horrible. And I was just like, this is such a real way that victims are treated. Yeah. So I think she did a good job with that.
It just was such a strange choice, just generally.
It was a strange choice. And the other thing that made me really sad about it was that Florian was apologizing to him during...
Oh, Florian.
I love Florian. He just wanted to take care of the little pigs and the horses. And you know what's interesting about that, too, is that they are engineered to do a particular job, but it is clear that Florian's preference would have been to animal husbandry, to pet the pigs and raise horse and raise filly.
He's such a caregiver at heart.
He is such a caregiver. So it's interesting that he became basically a bodyguard / assassin.
And so Florian and Catelyn, she's the more like a military one too, which is a little
she
different.
Seems more like that is actually innate to her, whereas Florian doesn't. But with Ozzy, well, I guess since they're alphas, they have more variability. But it was surprising to me that someone who clearly wants to be a caregiver was raised up to become a very, very effective bodyguard and child killer.
That actually brings me. So you said that he was a alpha, so he could go a little bit sideways, and that we were talking about Aban earlier.
Oh yeah,
Aban. I don't know how to pronounce his name. So he attacks.
Amy has to read her fine print.
I have to put my reading glasses on.
They're my reading glasses.
My new reading glasses.
They're yours now.
He attacks Ari and company after governmental day. I don't know how to describe it.
Which day is that?
So they go. So after
at the end.
After Jordan recants his confession, they go to Novgorod to have an inquiry of some kind and confront the press. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I like that you said an inquiry of some kind, because now I'm like, what were they there?
They were there for the something. So he was like lodging all these accusations about having been framed.
It's funny because in the United States in 2023, if someone recanted a confession, everyone would shrug.
Yeah.
Someone who's already in prison is like, you know what? I didn't do it. Everyone would be like, sure you didn't. Here's your bologna sandwich.
I guess in this situation, it's like the council basically was implicated in a false imprisonment, and that's what anyway.
God, it's so boring.
I know. So they anyway. So Ari and Justin fly off to Novgorod to do whatever, and so when they're there after they've had their day of inquiry, they're in their hotel room. All they want to do is sink into their beanbag chairs and relax. And Aban comes in and there's a bomb. So this is one of the breadcrumbs that I was talking about with what she does. So you don't understand, but then I was reading a review, and I wish I had written down where this review is from. I'll put the link in the show notes. But random parts of the book explain what's happening, but you aren't told that, right? So like this explains what happens with Aban, I think. This is a line from the book. Which is why some alphas go dangerous and why you have trouble getting them to take help tapes. Some start flux thinking on everything.
Flux.
Some just skiz, destructure their deep sets, and reconstruct their own based on whatever comes intact out of the flux they're getting. And after that, you don't know what they are. They become like CITs, only with some real strange logic areas. So I think after Gerard dies, Aban, like, has all this crazy flux thinking that they call it.
Flux thinking is just like having feelings.
Having
right?
feelings, emotions.
Yeah.
And yeah, yes. And you don't know, it's having a lot of input you don't know what to do with, right? In their partner.
Yeah, that's just being a person.
So he has a lot of feelings about Gerard dying, and what happens to him is he goes crazy, and he like probably thinks he's doing what Gerard wants, but I don't think there was actually a direction to him to do this. I think he just goes crazy.
I thought either Gerard or Dennis told him to do it.
I don't know. There's a lot of talk in this book about how hard it is for Ozzy to lose their supervisors.
So that's why they killed him when Ari died, which...
Yeah, they euthanized Catelyn and Florian when Ari Sr. dies.
I didn't quite get that. It's very, like, Egyptian, like, and then kill my cat.
Right. Bury me with my servants. Yeah, so they can't handle it. And so Aban, I think he looked like he was keeping it together because he was taking care of all the details after Gerard died, but I think he was actually going insane and then he did this thing. That's why that reading that was what made me want to read the book again, because it was like, oh, I wonder if there's actually a lot of answers in this book. I just didn't see them.
I have the feeling this is a book, to use Seth's phrasing, because I find it very useful, that it rewards a second read.
Yeah. I think that's right.
I like the idea of reading it twice. I will not. But I don't know that I ever will
either.
Yeah.
It's so long.
Well, it's...
The audiobook is 38 hours, and that is a full work week. And I was thinking that if I had read this book when I was younger, like 18 or 20, I might have liked it better because I had many decades of my life ahead of me. So, like, that much reading doesn't seem like as much. Yeah. But, like, now I'm at the midpoint of my life, and I don't want to spend that many hours reading this book. It seems like a greater proportion of the life I have left to read this book at 39.
So this is why I always say, if you don't like a book, stop reading it.
Right.
Except for the podcast.
Except for the podcast.
I have to say, there were points in this book I think I would have stopped reading it if we hadn't been reading for the podcast.
Oh, totally.
And I don't do that often, but I might have stopped reading. Because especially, I was so mad when I got to the end of this freaking book and we don't find out who kills Ari Sr., which I want to talk about.
I think it's good that you had feelings. I was just like, checks out. I was like, I don't know what's happening anyway. Cool.
I had to just let go. I had to let it go at times. I was reading and I did not have any idea what was going on. And I was just like, I have just let this go.
I have been thinking about this. Like, I think of all of us. I think Amy Reed's maybe the closest. You're second for sure. But I just, like, this was not quite as bad as Stars in My Pocket, but sometimes I'm just like, did I pass high school English?
I don't know. They would start talking about, like, that whole thing about the designing the tapes and what Ari Sr. was working on with Gehenna, the planet, and, like, they would go into this babble about what they were talking about with these tapes and with these socio structures and Field Too Large and all this stuff, and I had no idea what they were talking about.
Somebody compared CJ Cherryh to Neil Stephenson, and I adore Neil Stephenson, and I like his technobabble, but it makes sense, and the plot goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and when he explains complicated things, he explains them well.
Yeah.
Because I can grasp complicated subjects.
I know that about you.
But when you combine it with bad writing, my brain turns off. I was like, I can't.
Writing was very hard to get through for me. Yeah, agreed. It just wasn't pleasant and it wasn't helpful.
Yeah, well, and so this is for Lori. The parts of it that I felt the most human were when she was talking about the horses.
Oh, yes.
Because so I was thinking about this last night in the shower because I was like, why didn't I like this? Because I'm trying to be as positive as I can. This is such a foundational work, but it's because there's very few bits of human joy. And I was thinking about how it compares to N.K. Jemisin when, like, you can name any character in any of those books in that trilogy, and I'm like, man, they felt like real people.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe it's just, you could argue that she did it on purpose because this is a world with artifice and design, but I think that's letting her off cheaply. So.
I agree. I think the only person in this book that I felt any warmth towards at any point was Grant.
Mine was Ari.
And Florian. I did like Florian.
Oh, I also liked Florian.
Ari had moments. I think Ari is a pretty well-drawn character.
Ari, too, I think, is fine.
That's who I meant. Yeah. Ari, too, is a pretty well-drawn character, but she's very hard to root for, which maybe is on purpose. I'm not sure. But even she... I don't know. I struggled with her, too.
The times in this book that I felt the most engaged were the times when Ari 1 was talking to Ari 2 through time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was super cool. Like, I could read that her entire life. Like, just... Because it made me think about, like, what if I had somebody being like, Haley, you're just 16 now. here's what your predilections are. Like, you're going to get really into Star Wars and boats. Like, it was just cute. And
that would be interesting.
Like, I love that part.
I like this quote from Joe Walton's review on Tor.com, and Joe loves this book.
She's read
this
book.
40 times.
40, twice a year.
Do you know what? I love how much Joe Walton loves books.
She
and even
loves
when
books.
she loves a book that I don't like, I enjoy how much she loves reading.
Absolutely.
And she said, the genius of this book is how it manages to get your sympathy for this incredibly unsympathetic person. And I have to agree with that. I think it was particularly masterful to put this awful character's adulthood before her childhood. And then we get to see her childhood. And so she's a person at the beginning of the book where Joe said, I would have killed her myself in the first 40 pages if I had the chance. And I think that's true. She's a monster. And then you see her childhood and you learn the things that she went through, and you get to know Ari too.
Who's different, yeah.
Who is different. And it really does give you some sympathy for her. And I think that it's very challenging to create sympathy for a character as awful as Ari Sr. was.
Why do you guys think RE2 ended up different than RE1?
Well, she had, I mean, it's a nature-nurture thing,
It was
right?
better tape, too, right? I think that was part of it.
Better tape. She didn't get abused by her uncle, which was probably a big deal.
Yeah. Probably a
that's
very big deal to
huge.
not be sexually abused by your custodian.
And Mama was not killed. She was just transferred.
Which I think it does make a difference, but it's a
100%.
different
Yeah.
difference? Good.
See,
that's my insight.
I think it makes a difference, but I thought it was worse. I think it
would be worse.
For me, I think it would be worse
Yeah.
to be effectively
alive.
abandoned by a parent because, you know, when you're a little kid, you may not see abandonment and death as different because you just know your parent is gone. But knowing that,
They're
like,
out
as
there.
you grow, and as you grow older, realizing I was left.
Yeah.
And if you grew older and a parent had died, you would realize, well, my parent didn't have control over that, even though maybe when you're 7, it feels the same. But as you become, 13, 14, you're like, oh, well, she had cancer or whatever. She didn't leave me. She died. But I think this is a ongoing kind of trauma to know that your mom is out there and not writing you letters.
I also think about the difference between what must have happened between Ari and Jordan and what happened between Ari and Justin, because Ari comes on to Justin at some point, and there's a very acute rejection there. Acute, not cute.
They're both gay.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I was like, was it cute?
it was acute. So she feels it very acutely. Like she gets rejected by this person, like probably the only person she actually has actual feelings for. And I'm wondering if the rejection from Jordan so Ari Sr. gets rejected by Jordan, and that leads to their rift, like leads to a really bad rift between them. And then that leads to a whole bunch of stuff. And then Ari Jr. is rejected by Justin, but Justin handles it very differently. Like, he sits her down and talks to her. And
And they're both gay, though. Like, it's easy to get, like, I don't get my feelings hurt when a straight person doesn't
but
want
she's
to
not thinking of it that way. She's a person who gets everything she wants in life. And she has feelings for this one person only, and he rejects her, and she takes that very very badly. And I guess she knows that. I don't know if gay means the same thing in this book that it does in our life. But Ari, I think, is helped through that rejection much better, and Ari Jr. is helped through it much better than Ari Sr. is. And I think there's all these things that happen to Ari Sr. that just alienate her from other people. And I think Ari Jr. for some reason doesn't have all that going on, and so it helps her keep empathy.
The other important difference is that when Jordan rejected Ari Sr., Jordan was 17 and Ari was 90-something.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was a grown-ass woman who was probably already decades into not hearing no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Power corrupts, everybody.
I was reading about this, and somebody online compared it to, there's a book, a speculative fiction book, that they tried to do this with baby Hitler, and
God.
Which I think is probably a more effective way to do it, because, like, she paints Ari 1 as, like, this awful, horrible person, but, like, Hitler is objectively, like, the worst person that ever lived. So.
And we all already know that. We don't need any exposition.
Yeah, I don't need 40 pages of, like, a Bavarian political scheme. Just be like, this is baby Hitler. What should we do? Although I was thinking about, like, so it was unclear. So obviously she's going to be raised as Ari 2 to continue the research, but, like, is she a political figure as well? Like, do you have to vote for her? I wasn't clear about that.
Yeah, because she talked toward the end about, once I'm old enough, I will run for a seat. Like, they at the beginning they had, like, the science council and this person, and then I don't remember any of it, but I think she had planned to run for whatever seat that Ari held, and then I guess Gerard held after Ari died.
I think Ari Sr. went from being the administrator of Razoon to being on that council, and I think that's what Ari Jr. wants her trajectory to be as well.
Yeah, which I got, but then it made me think about this, and I actually can't stop thinking about it, because I could see Trump's people cloning Trump, and then his supporters being like, oh yeah, that's Trump.
Oh God.
Can you imagine?
Jesus.
Oh no!
And that really makes the
got
book
like a chest pain.
I know, but like, doesn't it seem like something that could happen?
Yes.
And they'd be like, that's our boy, and they could recreate like him skipping the Vietnam War. But that made it feel more real to me when I made it into an American politician. And politics is always crazy, no matter what universe you live in. But I was like, ooh, that would be horrible.
That would be awful.
Because if you think about how many presidents are like the sons of other presidents or the grandsons.
we love a dynasty.
Yeah.
Everybody
A
loves a
Bush, a
dynasty.
Kennedy.
And it's the same genetic set, just with like a mom mixing it up a little bit. But yeah, that was weird.
I want to talk about who you guys think killed Ari.
Who knows?
Well,
You have no thoughts.
I
have no
spoiled
thoughts.
myself, so I know who it is, so I won't.
All right, well, let me tell you what I think, and then you can tell me what the spoiler is.
Okay.
Wait, are we okay with that spoiler? Are we okay with doing that spoiler?
Is it somebody we know? I mean, like, Cronin was a bad guy.
Okay, hold on. I've heard that the explanation is very unsatisfactory, so I'm sure it has nothing to do with...
Maybe that's why I don't care, because like if what she's thinking doesn't make sense, like then I don't know.
I read somebody's theory that they thought she killed herself because she realized, so Jordan comes to see her in the cryo vat. I don't know where they are. And she realizes right then that she's going to die anyway. She might as well kill herself now, pin it on Jordan, and then all of her plans can come to fruition.
I thought that.
I thought that was a great...
I think it would be great.
I think that would be great. And it would explain why Jordan didn't do it and how nobody else could have done it. And I was like, yes, that makes so much sense for her character.
The only
I'm all about
counterpoint
it.
would be she's too narcissistic to kill herself.
But she knows there's gonna be another one of her.
That's true.
So you don't kill yourself thinking this is the end of me. You kill yourself thinking I'm just getting started. You know.
She's also a control freak. So,
Mhm.
like, I could see her saying, I want to go out on my terms, not like, because she was sick. So I could see her saying, I don't want to, like, die in the hospital.
Okay, give us the answer, and we'll tell people at the top of the episode where the spoiler is, so they can skip it.
Okay.
I'm fine with that explanation. So the Ari one, if
Yeah, it's more fun.
it's more fun.
Well, I couldn't even find a name for who it was. It was like some character that we don't know. It was just like some guy. Here's the thing. When you Google who killed Ariane Emery, which really took me back to Googling who killed Jenny Schechter, which I did for like a year after the L Word ended.
I'm just not a mystery person. Like, unless I care about somebody, I'm like, I don't. Who cares?
Well,
I have to know. I have to know.
This was like the whole catalyst for this book.
Yeah.
And the back of the book was like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm a murder mystery. And I was like, great, I love those.
There's also two men on the cover that I'm assuming are Jordan. and
Yeah.
Grant.
Jordan and Grant.
that's
I'm
my
assuming.
guess.
Yeah.
I know. I wondered why it was.
Why isn't
two men.
Ari? Ari is on the cover of the
Yeah.
broken up version.
Yeah.
The trilogy version.
But yeah, it's like I couldn't find an actual answer because all of the reviews were just like, it turned out to be some character that we didn't even know. It wasn't
the
even like
hell?
someone who was like mentioned, one of those things you might pick up if you on a reread. Joe Walton even was disappointed by it.
I mean, I guess in life, random things happen that have big implications.
I don't want to read that shit.
But man, if you're gonna craft a whole book around a murder, ugh.
All right, here's
680 pages with no answer. 20 years go by or 16 years or something, and then the sequel, and then still not a good answer.
Here's my theory. To get this book published, they were like, we only got room for one mystery book, but she really wanted to write a sci-fi book.
And they were like, we need you to kill somebody.
She's
that
like,
does
fine.
happen.
Yeah,
Publishers do that.
So she's like, fine. It was Colonel Mustard on Razoon. I think this is a good time also to remind our audience that, one, I don't read mysteries, and two, anytime I've watched any movie in my entire life, I've never guessed the ending.
I would like to announce how much this book weighed and who was the winner of guessing how much it weighed on Twitter.
Oh, please, please, please.
Okay. So I weighed the book. I really thought it weighed like 3 pounds or something, but it turns out that Cyteen, the paperback that I got from the Fulton County Public Library, weighs in at 1 pound, 10.7 ounces, or 757 grams for our friends in the entire rest of the world, which is less than I had thought. And the winner of how much does this book weigh is Gretchen, who is at G_lovesbooks on Twitter. Gretchen was under by just a mere 1.1 ounces or 31 grams, I think.
Oh, nice.
And I awarded Gretchen a trophy emoji.
Yay, good job, Gretchen. Way to have eyeballs and a sense of proportion. Would you clone yourself?
Oh, 100%. I wish I would have given my clone right now.
Only if I could, like, plug my current identity in. Like, I wouldn't.
So you'd Ari it.
No, like, because
Well, it's Psychogenesis.
she's dead. Like, that's a new person.
Like with memories and stuff.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
which happens in 6 Wakes. There were a bunch of things that this reminded me of. 6 Wakes, The Echo Wife, The Mountain and the Sea, actually. That's a 2022 publication by Ray Naylor. Haley, you've read that, right? Amy, have you read it? It's very good. And the Ozzy as partners reminded me of the 0.5s.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Rat Korga, and Stars in My Pocket. Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of things that echoed this a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's also why Jo likes it, because she likes all the sci-fi books.
Yeah, she's read literally every book.
Yeah, so she's like, I know where this is coming from.
Yeah.
I don't think I would clone myself. I think we've all had quite enough. I think I'm good.
I would clone myself if I could plug me in, which is what they do in 6 Wakes. They wake up with the memories of everything.
I will say, if I could be 20 again and know what I know now, that would be pretty dope.
I would be able to raise myself with therapy and communication and emotional regularity.
How would I be if I was...
It'd be amazing.
Okay, that's a good point. I'll think about it some more.
I'll take so much tape.
Yeah, I would regenerate a body with better digestion.
Oh, imagine if we didn't have the GERD.
Feminist favorite?
I think that both Ari's, while complicated characters, are badasses.
My feminist favorite was the crone Victoria Strassen standing up at the funeral and
objecting at the funeral,
giving everybody what for. She was just like, she did not give a fuck, and she Ben knew what was going on. She's like, "Where's Denise? Where's Denise right now? Anybody? And she's like, "We've all just given up on nature. I don't understand." I mean, she was the best.
Yeah.
I loved that moment.
Mama.
I also really liked that the book is utterly humorless, the way a feminist should be.
There is not one joke in this entire book. Maybe that's why I had trouble with it. Oh, yeah.
My feminist favorite, and this is a little bit joking, but is when they informed Jane Strassen that she was going to be Ari's maman. Jane said, "I hate kids." With an exclamation point.
Oh, she did.
Meanwhile, she has a daughter and a granddaughter.
And I don't hate kids, and I don't think it's feminist to hate kids, but I thought it was very funny when she was like, "I don't want to be a mother."
Yeah. Well, a lot of my friends with kids are like, I hate every kid but my kid.
Yeah. And she was as good a mother as she could have been. And she was better than Olga.
She ended up, I think she loved Ari.
Yeah, absolutely. She absolutely did.
Yeah. Boob talk?
It was weirdly sexless for a book with so much sex.
Yeah, I put, apart from the sexual assault and underage sex, there's not much physical happening.
So Ari Jr. was looking at herself in the mirror, and she noted to herself, Ari Sr. was a bit more on top.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was another part. I was so aggravated by this, and it was in an Ari chapter, so I know, like, kids don't see themselves as kids, especially when they're adolescents, so, like, whatever. But Ari made the observation that Catelyn's pants showed off her slim hips like everything.
Like everything.
Everything.
Also, I'm like, a slim hip? Like, what?
As opposed to...
What's the showing off there? Like...
Slender was in the 90s, I guess?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, 89 was like before heroin chic.
Also, Catelyn was like 12, so of course she had slim hips.
Was it Stassi or Maddie? I think it was Maddie was her little friend who she kept talking how... She talked about her figure, I think, from time to time.
My whole misogynist moment is observations about Maddie.
Oh my God. The whole middle of the book is just 17 birthday parties in a row. Misogynist moment. I had a hard time finding one, but Lori, please.
Before she launches into her Maddie tirade, I will say I did not love that Ari became irrational every time she had a period.
Yeah.
Oh, that is something that Keith Law mentioned.
Yeah,
Let me find it.
It like reduces her down to hormones.
He said that he felt that it was discomfiting that an adolescent girl's every mood was reduced to her hormones.
Yeah,
and I really appreciated that he said that. And there was a point when Dennis said, there was some implication that Dennis could tell Ari was on her period by her tone of voice.
Yes!
Moon!
Maybe.
It reminds me of being told one time that I couldn't be talked to when I was emotional.
It's just like, maybe she's just mad. Maybe she's just mad about a normal thing, or maybe she's mad that she's a science project. She has a lot to be mad about.
This is only fine when I have a really weird day, and then the next day I do get my period, and I'm like, oh. I don't hate everybody.
That's why I was so mad. Okay. So a lot of Ari's thoughts about the other girls when she's an adolescent pissed me off, and I thought, like, why aren't we past this far in the future?
Yeah.
Ari goes shopping, and she starts thinking about, like, buying nice outfits to make the other girls jealous. And then there's a point where Ari says that Amy was almost pretty. Then she does a lot of ruminating on, like, Amy's long face, and she's interesting looking, which people have said to me before. Fuck you. Why don't you just not talk to me about how I look? But I've gotten the, you're interesting.
Is it interesting where they can't remember you? That's
yeah, I know, right? So Amy was almost pretty. And then the way that Ari thinks about Maddie, she says, Maddie was, quote, always slinking around and fluttering at the boys.
Oh, God.
Ari is hosting teenage sex parties. Like, I mean, you can't get mad at...
Like, Ari can't be slut-shaming anybody.
Also, like, you invite her to a sex party and then you get mad that she has lots of sex.
In those moments, I couldn't stop myself from thinking that's CJ talking because a teenage girl wouldn't say that.
Well, I feel like a teenage girl in like 1990 might have, but like an adult woman,
those terms,
have.
No,
I don't think so.
Oh yeah, like fluttering and slinking, yeah.
Also,
but I mean, certainly, like there's a culture of manufactured competition between girls and women, and so I think that this is playing into that, and it really bothers me that we're hundreds of years in the future, we're cloning people, like women are in power. You know, it's like you were talking about with Doomsday Book. There's like background feminism, and then there's this shit, and I just really bothers me. And then, quote, Maddie was on ever since she realized there was a difference in boys and girls.
On.
Well, she's horny for them. And also, Ari is horny, like, for the
whole time.
450 pages of this, like, the back 450 pages of this book. Ari is horny.
I thought.
Which is fine. So stop being so judgy.
Let's not judge Maddie, shall we?
I think this isn't necessarily a misogynist moment, but I didn't know where else to put it. I felt bad for Justin having to befriend and hang out with the woman child of the person who raped him.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
And like have to be nice to her and be like, oh, you didn't do this, but you are. It's like looking in the mirror.
Right. Why? And like when he tried to avoid her, he got in trouble for it. When he tried to be friendly but standoffish, like just polite to her, he got in trouble for it. And then at one point, they made him come to her birthday party.
Yeah,
He'd just gotten arrested for being polite but chilly with her, and then he had to go to her birthday party. I was so confused.
Maybe the title should have been Clone Birthday Party. Do you want to come to my clone birthday party? All right. Fantastic foods. We touched on this earlier. So much orange juice.
There
is a lot of food, but none of it is interesting. It's all transactional. It's very much grabbing a sandwich and roll at the airport type vibe.
I said it was the opposite of fantastical.
Punch and cake. So much punch and cake.
Yeah, it was... What's the word for like everyday?
Mundane
foods. Yeah.
The stuff about the orange juice and the milk being flexes was interesting.
Once, yeah.
Coffee was also a flex, which was interesting.
You know, I was thinking about this. When I read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, they eat nothing but sandwiches and coffee, and I loved it.
But they tell you, like, what's on the sandwich. Yeah. Was it spicy mustard or was it yellow mustard? Like, you know every single thing about this thing. You know everything she bought at IKEA.
I went and bought special bread when I was reading those books. I loved it. And this one,
some books make you hungry.
Yeah. Some people, it's just...
But I don't want a screwdriver.
A lot of eggs in this book. They ate a lot of eggs.
I bet that's a flex, too.
Maybe. Yeah. It was weird. I always leave soap stuff for Lori.
I mean, this whole book is soap stuff.
Yeah, that's literally what it says. This whole thing is a soap opera, but like there are soap tropes in here, which I almost want to say soap tropes. Did science fiction invent this or did soap operas invent clones? Brothers turned lovers, pretty soapy, and then like tape is effectively brainwashing, right?
Yeah,
and brainwashing is very soapy. But I wouldn't be able to pick one particular scene. Oh, although I do have a sub-segment of soap stuff called Melodramatic Moment. And this was the corniest shit I ever read in my life. Around the end of chapter 7, Ari has just had some big revelation, and I can't remember what it was, and I gleefully returned the book to the library yesterday, so I don't know exactly what happened. But she just found something out. She was very angry at Uncle Dennis. She had stormed off to her room. She was snuggling up with Pooh Thing.
Oh, Pooh Thing.
Which we can talk about in Grammar Gripes. She's cuddling up with Pooh Thing, and then she calls Florian and Catelyn, and they get in the bed with her, and first she smashes a mirror, which... She smashes a mirror. She gets in bed with Pooh Thing, her little stuffed animal, or stuffed something. And then she calls Florian and Catelyn to her, and they climb in the bed with her, and they cuddle up. And Pooh Thing fell. She let him. And like that's the moment, right, where she's not a child anymore. She's putting aside her childish thing, and she's cuddling up in the bed with her sex slave assassin bodyguard clones. I thought it was so melodramatic. I shouted.
That is a fantastic observation. It's like the part in Harry Potter when Hedwig dies. Just the innocence is gone.
Hedwig didn't die.
Actually,
I have fan fiction where Hedwig doesn't die.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Hedwig hates turfs, so she decided to die. She was like, I don't want to be here anymore. She was like, you guys don't know where this is going, but it's going to get bad.
Did you like the book?
Oh,
sorry. We have grammar gripes.
Can I do a quick pony prattle and a quick grammar gripes? Okay. So I was excited to see the horses, and they were unfortunately just abandoned. Like, there was a lot of horse stuff, and then abruptly there wasn't anymore.
I also wanted like more detail to the horse stuff.
Well, it kind of gets, I don't know if it was abandoned. There's a very clear implication that a lot of people are going to be getting horses. So I think there's going to be a whole horse breeding situation. Like, it talks about how she's going to, like, segment off part of Razoon and build a horse, like, stadium.
A horse stadium. I love that.
Hippodrome.
Yeah.
Equidrome. Did they use that word?
No, but they should.
Oh, I was like, oh my God, I missed it.
Yeah, there's a horse future in Cyteen.
There was a moment where I wondered if horses were a metaphor for Ozzy. There's a quote from maybe Andy, whoever was the lead animal husbandry Ozzy, where he said, you get them used to a saddle and a bridle, and then you add a little weight. And it made me think of slowly feeding Ozzy tape to shape them into what you want them to be.
Good
the labor that you want them to do.
Good observation,
We got a gunner over here.
Look at this over here.
Someone's going for an A+.
In this essay, I will.
I'm just like, I don't like the lack of sandwiches.
Okay, grammar gripes.
Grammar gripes. We talked about the M dashes.
The M dashes were my main grammar gripes.
So the ellipses too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the dams and the dammits were really good.
So many. A 10-year-old saying that's damn, like, whatever.
Courtesy of our friend on Twitter, Miguel, I said, does anyone have an ebook? Because we really need a word count on damn and damn it. And Miguel got us a word count. Damn appears 675 times.
It's almost every page.
Yeah.
Literally almost every page.
And damn it appears 170 times.
So every page has a damn or a damn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
She could have thrown in a fuck or a shit.
No, she could not. That is the only swear word we have on Cyteen.
The other thing I hated was in the Ari chapter as well. I think she did a pretty good job of characterizing the way a little kid would think about things and talk about things. So I have to give her credit for that. But the affectation in the Ari chapters where she always says real instead of really, Uncle Dennis will be real mad. Things are going to get real crazy around here. The horses are going to be real great to have. Like, and it carried through her life. And I think that it could have been a way to show her becoming more sophisticated, to have her stop doing that. But she never stopped doing that. So she was like 18 years old and she's still being like, there was a real big bomb in my hotel room.
And she also says she has a mad.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout her life.
Justin's mad. I hope Justin's mad doesn't.
Justin apostrophe S mad.
And then I think
yes.
I mentioned this in the group chat, but she says like nasty as for me.
Yeah.
Oh, she was real nasty to me.
Which is I've heard that my whole life. I feel like it's a Southern thing.
Yeah, and like, but to me, it's like
I've never seen it in a book.
I didn't like it because it's a very egregious thing to say. Like, oh, he was nasty to me. It's like, oh shit, like they cut you down.
It's funny when you said that. I realized I had absolutely not noticed it.
Yeah.
Maybe because
I noticed it because I don't recall ever seeing it in a book before.
No,
and it jumped out to me. I was like, oh, weird.
It's like
that's what my mom says when I'm being nasty.
It's a hurtful thing to say. So I was like, oh, she means
stop being nasty.
Oh, we forgot to talk about biting your lip too to lip bleed.
Yeah,
everybody bit their whole lip off during this book.
It's a wonder there are any lips left. Maybe there aren't. Bit until it bled.
Have either of you ever bitten your lip until it bled on purpose?
No,
absolutely not. Other things I could complain about are poo
but
thing,
I won't.
Oh, poo thing. Yeah.
The restaurant being called Changes and the commissary being called Necessaries, which I truly think all three of those were placeholders that she was supposed to go back and give it a different name.
Loved Changes and Necessaries. I thought those two things were very... Like, they made a lot of sense in context. And Changes sounds so much like an early 90s bistro to me.
Does.
Like,
it does.
And Necessaries, like, I thought those were both great.
I got so angry every time someone said, call Changes and make a reservation. Well, okay, can you just be eating at Changes? Like, do I have to see the reservation happening? I mean, so, a lot of things, it's like immersing you in the world, but I don't need to see the reservation happen. You could just be at Changes.
We could save that sentence and
we
explain
got a lot of things given to us in real time that we did not need.
Yeah.
When you think about how people choose to write, like, so I come from a background of poetry, which is like, you pick every word means so much. But like with fiction, I guess you just like open up the floodgates. You're just like, and then they went to the store, and then I love it.
It depends on who you ask, because Mr. Hemingway would sure sit there over one sentence for a full day because he was a man of, like, because some people choose words carefully and some people don't.
Ooh, like contrast, something I notice whenever I read Nnedi Okorafor, her books, like every word is working hard. Every sentence has a purpose to it. Whenever I read anything by her, I'm always like, I don't know, it's just like a breath of fresh air. And it's not to say that I don't sometimes enjoy like something immersive that's giving me a lot of additional detail that I don't necessarily need, but I like. But this book had a lot of stuff that I felt was unhelpful. And
I was reading a book about writing recently, and especially with short stories, it's like every sentence should add something to the reader's understanding in a way that is natural and organic. And I was like, so now when I read books and like each sentence builds on it like you're building a house, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the stuff.
It's good, right?
Instead of just like
I'll read any lengthy explanation Brandon Sanderson wants to hand me, but this, for some reason, I think it was because of that. It's like you get a lot of repetition, so much repetition that doesn't enhance anything.
I refuse to bring this book into bed with me at night.
Oh no, I read it a lot.
I read it on the couch downstairs, like in the evenings, but I saved my nights to like have a palate cleanser. And I was literally reading like a biography of John Paul Jones from the 50s, and I loved it.
I would never have finished this book if I didn't read it all the time at night, everywhere.
I did a lot of audiobook with this so that I could passively listen while I was doing anything else, because I would fall asleep like a page and a half. I would fall asleep.
I did about an hour a day every other day, and I took a couple of breaks because I just like I don't want to read this right now. So
I had it broken up into chunks that I had to read each day in order to make it on time. And I had to keep my pace.
We should post that picture of you with all your little tabs. I did that with Jonathan Strange.
I got it from you. I got the idea from you.
It also made me, not being able to get this in ebook, I vastly prefer ebooks these days because I can like, it's easier, like when you underline a physical book, it's hard, like how do you remember to go back and find it?
Well, I had to stop taking notes on this book because it was taking too much time, and I didn't have that kind of time. I had to read the book.
Wanted an ebook so I could go back when there would be a name that I didn't recognize, and it would be great to have an ebook to be able to jump back and be like, who the fuck are you? Or is this actually the first time I've ever seen this character?
How about introducing two major characters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
75 pages.
Don't worry about it. Okay. Did you like this book?
Nope.
I will give you my answer. I think it's like medicine. It's a slog, but I think it was worth it to get to the ideas. And if I had to break it up, so this book, is it technically 3 books is how it was published, I think?
Well, it's how it was published, but she actually wrote it as one.
Yeah. But I love the middle part. I'm a fan of the middle part. That's when I started to know what was going on, was engaged with Ari and talking to herself, Ari 1 to Ari 2. Yeah. So I did not like the first part, and the third part just confused me. So
I guess I did not find this book enjoyable to read.
Same.
But I found it interesting to think about.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It didn't make me mad like Ringworld. It made me mad like a hard college class.
Yeah.
Or something. I'm having a hard time drawing comparisons.
Yeah.
But
I think we understand the concepts of this college class. It's just maybe the professor
isn't clear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's why I got to
see
see in Trust and Estates.
I'm kind of with you, Amy. I guess to just say no is like a little bit reductive.
Right. I didn't enjoy reading it, but it's not that I didn't like it.
It made me feel uncomfortable. It was a little bit of a claustrophobic feeling, and maybe that's the point.
Which I think is on purpose. I do.
I think that's I feel like we say that a lot.
But I think she's a good enough writer that we can give her that credit.
I hope so.
This is another one of those that is curious in that it takes place in a huge, sweeping, intergalactic political scenario, but we're basically in a gray box. Kind of like Foundation.
Men talking in rooms.
Yeah, because one of the things that I love most about good sci-fi that speaks to me is like I get that feeling of expansiveness, like from Broken Earth or from Binti, which is just on one spaceship too, but I don't feel
She describes the world we're in very seldom. Like you don't know what Razun looks like. You don't really know what the planet looks like. You get some stuff, but not a lot. And you're never oriented as to place.
And they have to live in a dome, right?
Yeah.
And there's so much opportunity to make a biodome really fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I know.
She's like leaving changes. She glanced up and saw the weird red clouds that they have in the dome.
Something,
and that would just help ground me in the moment a little bit more.
Or what plants maybe do they have to make the air breathable, like that kind of thing.
I would read a whole chapter on the orange juice exportation process. That would help me.
How they get the coffee.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Just little bits that help tie you to a sense of belonging.
I agree.
For people who can't afford orange juice, how do they not get scurvy?
I'll read about
to tie it back to our favorite subject.
It's like you have to assume they have some sort of synthetic, but you're never told that.
Yeah.
Right? So
I mean, I remember. So I've been in book clubs where we've read Les Mis and huge bookstop books. That there's that section in Les Mis where it's 20 pages about the Parisian sewer system.
Right.
But I still like that too.
The cytology of the Parisian sewer system.
Like we like Moby Dick. It doesn't have to be like not every. It can be boring.
Yeah.
and be
It doesn't
good.
have to be a page turner.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we all like dry things. There's some sci-fi that I think in the past year especially that we've just like, it's just been tough.
This book is all in people's heads.
Yeah.
And that's why, which I guess makes sense for what she's talking about, but it makes it difficult. Yeah.
Even though I didn't enjoy the process of reading it, this is a book that I will think about often, and I think for a long time.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy all of the things that I've read that were more recent that it made me think of.
Oh, yeah.
This book walked so the expanse could run.
Yeah. It's taken your sci-fi medicine. We got to do it. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
Pass.
Prequels.
Yeah, there's only one answer. It's Star Wars. There's clones, there's humans on lots of different planets.
It's the prequels when they're in the Republic or whatever they're doing.
Cyteen is basically Camino. I read a funny review that was like, it was a Goodreads dialogue of a man talking to his wife, and she was like, "What is this book about? It's about these teenagers, these Cyteens." So I was like, he's like, "No, that's the name of the planet." She goes, "That's boring."
Cyteens!
Oh, yeah. I didn't think of it. A lot of people thought it stood for cybernetic teenager. And I never even thought of that.
Just leaked out of my ears.
Cybernet, and it
I read that book.
could be about cybernetic teenagers.
Cyteen.
There are a lot of teenagers in this book.
That's true. So many birthday parties.
If she had just aged everybody up 5 years, I would have been a lot less uncomfortable this whole book.
I don't like to think about 12-year-olds having sex.
No.
They were too young for what was going on, and it drove me nuts. Ugh. Okay.
Yep. Next time we are reading Where Late the Sweet Bird Sang by Kate Wilhelm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we sure are. And it's a reasonable 200-page book.
I could do that in one night.
Oh, guess what? Also, Cody from Hugo Nuts is going to join us.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
That'll be fun.
And I'm going to join them for, I believe, an episode they're going to release in March on Providence by Max Berry. I almost said Matt Berry.
Is that
Matt Berry is a different
That's
person.
Laszlo.
I haven't even heard about that one.
I started it last night, and it was one of those books that grips you immediately.
Is it like a new one, or?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But,
well, cool.
Well, that's exciting. I love a crossover.
Yeah. So that'll be fun. We met them at Worldcon, and they were really nice.
Yes, they were.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, see y'all later. Do we say goodbye? I forget. Have we ever done a podcast?
Bye.
You go, girl. You go, girl. You go, girl. A hilarious podcast.
I think this episode just faded out.
Just like the book. This episode is just going to stop. There's no ending.
We should have been, do you like the book?
Dial tone.